last couple of years, we've had higher interest rates, lower inventory on average, fewer deals to be had. And so we are seeing some real estate investors say, hey, what else is out there that also offers tax benefits?
Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Richer Geek Podcast. Today we have Jon Ostenson. He is a top 1% national franchise broker, investor, author, international speaker, specializing in the area he has coined as the non-food franchising. If you know anything about restaurants and things like that, it's about as tough as hospitality as there is. Having served as president of an Inc. 500 franchise system, now as a multi-brand franchisee himself, Jon is uniquely positioned to educate others on franchising and franchise selection. How you doing, Jon?
Hey, doing great. Excited to be here, Mike.
Absolutely. So I always start out the podcast with give us the 2-minute version of who you are. I've had people go back to kindergarten and what schools they went to, and I'm like, let's just stick to who you are, what do you do, and how did you get into franchising?
Absolutely. Well, like so many of your listeners, I spent many years in the corporate world and had a great run, but always had that desire to build my own empire instead of someone else's. And got to my mid-30s and started poking my head around and was very fortunate to actually stumble into franchising. Had the opportunity to step in as president of Shelf Genie franchise system and support all of our franchisees across North America, and really fell in love with the franchise model through that. Just saw how so many different backgrounds could come together under a shared system, and we're supporting them and setting them up for success. And so fast forward, I ended up partnering with the founder of Shelf Genie. We eventually spun off. We invested in franchises ourselves on the franchisee side. So I've been on both sides, and still a multi-brand franchisee today. But have good people running those, and allows me to spend most of my time helping others, through FranBridge consulting, helping others connect the dots and identify the top opportunities in their market to step into business ownership.
So let's talk about, there's a couple questions. It's right off the bat that people have asked me about franchises, and whether it's the myths, the legends, the propaganda. There's a couple things. Number one is, well, I don't want to get into franchising because they take all the money. I go back to it's like, well, you're either going to spend it on the whatever percent on franchise, or you're going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on your own website and your own marketing and your own blah, blah, blah. So give our listeners a little bit of a insight of, yep, it's a lot better to do a franchise than the mom and pop start your own with the exact same concept.
Yeah, I'll say, and franchising is not right for everyone. I've got some clients that are too entrepreneurial and they want to put their thumbprints all over it. Franchising may not be the best path for them, but from what I've seen, the vast majority of people would benefit from the structure of a good franchise system. And not every franchise system is created equal. Just like any industry, you've got strong players that provide great support. You've got others that don't, and that's where we come in to help our clients identify the top ones. But with the franchise, you are paying a royalty fee back to the franchise. I mean, that goes with the territory. But as you said, a lot of times that covers expenses that you would be incurring yourself if you were to just start up a business on your own. And there's also the intangible benefit that you're paying for, in that you're essentially starting on third base. Others have had learnings and made mistakes, and here you're entering into a community of other owners running the same business day in, day out that you're learning from. You're also got that coach on the sidelines and that franchisor that's supporting you with their team. And again, the goal is that you make a far less mistakes than you would otherwise. And oftentimes those are costly, both tangibly as well as intangibly, because it takes time to learn from those. So even your marketing, having that more optimized on day one, because you're learning from the ramp ups in other cities that can now be employed in yours. So again, every franchise system, there are ones that are absolutely worth what you're paying in the royalty. But then there will be some that aren't, and that's where we come in to try to help.
Okay, so you're coming in, try to help. You have the background, you experience, you have. I think we talked on before we started recording. I mean, how many of those franchise different companies that you represent, and talk to us a little bit about why the benefits of day one. What do you do to help them? It's like, well, I'll just go on supercuts.com and do a franchise.
Yeah.
or whatever. What is the difference?
Yeah, you can certainly Google around, and what you're going to find is there's a lot of noise out there. Every company's putting their best marketing foot forward, and even if you come across a top 100 franchise list from a publication, most of those companies are actually paying to be on that list. It's a PR move. So again, just a lot of noise. Work, and I won't try to give a sales pitch here, but I will just say working with us, it's entirely free. We simply get a referral fee from the brand on the back end. None of that's passed on to our clients. So it's very much like a real estate model. I'm a real estate broker, but for franchises. And we're affiliated with IFPG, largest franchise brokerage in the country, work with over 600 different franchise companies that are looking to expand. Any given time, Mike, I mean, there's probably 60 or 70 that I feel strongest about. Again, just looking through those lenses of my background, I'm looking at the strength of the franchise leadership team, looking at the financial models, the competitive advantages, what are current owners and their system saying about their experience so far. So, there's a little bit of science, a little bit of art to it, and we're bringing all that to pass, as well as, our client's background and what could be a good fit for their situation.
And, what I see, it's funny, when I see that there's something hot coming on, everyone's getting into it. And then within 5 or 6 years, it's kind of gone away. You start seeing these CBD franchises coming on, and all of a sudden there's way too many on the block, or there's way too many of these on the block. How important is it to have kind of like an area protection within that franchise? Does that exist with some of those, so that, let's say you have whatever franchise, and then 2 blocks down the road, there's the exact same thing. Kind of like you have the Starbucks model, there's one on every block. How important is it to kind of have some type of a protection there?
Yeah, so within a franchise brand, you're going to have, if it's a customer-facing retail location, you're going to have a protected radius around that. If it's more of a service-based business out in the field, then you have what's called a territory, and that might be 250,000 in population. The franchisor helps define that, and oftentimes people will purchase multiple territories in order to scale. But no, kind of getting back to the theme you're mentioning, I focus on all the industries outside of food. I've cut out half the market. I focus on non-food, and things like home and property services, health and wellness, categories like kids, pets, seniors, things that are understandable cash flowing businesses that people will continue to spend on regardless of the economy. We're not chasing the latest trend because, our clients want non-trendy, oftentimes in some cases non-sexy, in food, you can do well in food in some cases, for sure. We've got nothing against those guys, but there are easier ways to make money. And I always point to frozen yogurt. Froyo was big until it wasn't, right? I mean, and so that's what came to mind when you started talking about like something going out of style. And so we like things like insulation and dumpsters and flooring and senior care, and youth soccer, and pet grooming, things that people will always spend on.
Yeah. And I think that's fantastic, because if you can do any type of that service industry, the plumbing, electrical, construction, any of those types of things. I know someone that owns, 10 or 15 like UPS stores.
Yeah.
She does extremely well because there are small businesses that need the PO boxes. They can always ship and receive, there's types of things but it's like, how many of us used to see Orange Theories? You don't see Orange Theories, that much anymore. The Jamba, the different juices that were trendy, and they go away. How important is it when you do a franchise? Because I'll see a franchise open up in A+ district, and I'm like going, wow, they're gonna have to sell like 1 million cupcakes, to pay that rent. Some cupcake or bundt cake franchise. And I'm like going, do they not realize that the rent is so high? Is that something that you help them with? It's like, what? Great franchise. Let's go maybe a mile away from downtown Scottsdale or these type of things where just rents are astronomical. Do you help in that aspect too?
Yeah, so we're flying a little bit higher, maybe 30,000 feet. So we're helping our client identify, hey, given your background, what you've shared with us based on what we're seeing in the market, and we do a lot of placements out there, here are the top 10 opportunities that are available currently in your market, touching on different industries, different price points, trying to give them some good variety. They'll usually choose 3 or 4 to then have a conversation with. We hold their hand through this whole discovery process. And during that process, you're learning that business, but you're also getting to talk to other franchisees in the system and asking them questions, hearing about their experience. To your question on the location, so the franchisor is going to be able to say, hey, here's who our competition is. Oftentimes it's a fragmented space. Maybe it's a mom and pop type operation, that you're competing with. Here's how we compete against those. As you get further along, you get serious about a brand. I say, hey, let's do some secret shopping. Go out and visit the competition, or maybe have them come give you a quote if it's that type of business. But again, they're getting to talk to other franchisees in similar type markets to hear about their experience. And then the franchisor does have the information, typically at the zip code level, the demographic information to say, hey, here's where we've seen success. Let's identify these locations. If it's a physical customer-facing location, they're going to work with a local real estate firm to then identify the top spots for that business with the right adjacencies in the retail center. But half of our clients never get into a retail setup. It's more of a service-based business out there in the field where you don't have that retail storefront.
Yeah. And well, that makes a good point, because it doesn't matter how the economy is. If your toilet's plugged up or your AC goes out, you will call them, and that's why maybe in within the franchise you do the pay now or pay in payments, and make another type of income on the side by having them pay monthly or something like that. As an entrepreneur, I'm like going, okay, how can I get this and then add this and then add, a couple other things. And speaking of that, I was looking at your one sheet that says, why are real estate investors like myself a great fit for a franchise?
Probably 2/3 of our clients invest in real estate as well. I personally do, both actively as well as through syndications. And I'm an all of the above kind of guy when it comes to that. I believe that for several reasons. One, the last couple of years, we've had higher interest rates, lower inventory on average, fewer deals to be had. And so we are seeing some real estate investors say, hey, what else is out there that also offers tax benefits? A lot of them have a W-2. They like the idea of, the tax benefits that come with real estate. Well, obviously, business ownership opens up a whole nother playbook of tax possibilities. So I'd say partly the mindset, but partly is maybe someone's got some single family homes and they're saying, I'm already paying for all these other services. What if I became the guy that does the cabinets, and I can do the cabinets for all my friends and kind of create another income stream? Or property management. I mean, we've got a lot of real estate professionals that will get into property management through franchising as a good bolt-on. So oftentimes it's complementary businesses. Sometimes it's a way to diversify as well.
Yeah. Now, talk about numbers. There's a lot of franchises. I'm not going to be devil's advocate, but a little bit. I knew someone that was in the food, and we'll talk about why you don't like food. She owned a couple Subway franchises. She wanted to expand. She wasn't big enough because this great location opened up. Well, the guy had 20 of them, would always be selected over her. And she couldn't actually make any money by only having 2. So what type of franchises are there? It's like going, you know what? There's so much different competition. Some franchises, hey, I can make some money by owning just 1 or 2, but then some you have to, just the numbers don't work. You have to own 5 or 10 of the franchises around the area to actually quit your day job. What do you see, and how can you talk about that, where you have to have a whole area or a lot of them?
Yeah. So if it's a service-based business, population 250,000, defining a territory, I'd say in that case, most of our clients, probably 2/3 of our clients, will buy 2 or 3 or even more territories out of the gate to give themselves a path to scale. Some will buy just one, and then of course you've got physical location retail franchises, and again, some will buy just one, some will buy multi-territory. Something that's very common within franchising is what I call internal M&A, and that's the idea that when someone goes to sell, they're likely going to get bought by another franchisee. That's why you don't see more franchises on the open market, because they never hit it because another franchisee buys them. So you can have that kind of organic growth as well take place. I'd say in some of these, in food, you do hear the stories, and you've got private equity getting involved, and they've got 130 Wendy's, or, I just had some clients that sold 12 McDonald's recently. It's common in food to have a whole lot of locations. I'd say in some of these other industries, it's less common. The most you might have is like 5 or 7, or I did have clients buy 10 trampoline parks recently. That was a big investment. They bought 10 of those and they're scaling up over time. But for most people, when you look at the franchise fee and the startup cost and several months of working capital all built in as an investment, oftentimes you're in the 200,000 to 400,000 ballpark. That's where a lot of things are falling. And so again, it just kind of opens up people's eyes when they understand that. And the fact there are a lot of ways to finance it and get involved as well. It's not just a cash play.
And, when I was looking at a franchise, there is a way, and you kind of hit on it. Let's say that I'm someone's East Coast franchise, Midwest franchise, they're trying to open up more in the Southwest. I look at it and say, or I go to Jon and say, hey, I like this franchise, but for a fee or an extra cost, I can actually buy a territory, right? Or an area to kind of protect myself. And then I have the first rights to open up those different locations. Is that how it works?
The area developer arrangement, I'd say, is less common. Some brands will do that, but I'd say more common would be the idea of opening up several territories. So, they're in Scottsdale, maybe that's a 2-territory market. And, if you're really looking to go big, maybe you buy some space in Phoenix as well, let's say. A lot of our clients, what they'll do, there's several ways. They give themselves optionality. Either they can, because the other territories around them may get bought down the road. That's the risk they run. But they can either buy other franchisees. That may or may not be an option. They can buy other franchise brands. Of course, they could always go start a non-franchise as well. But a lot of our clients will come back and buy additional franchises. I had some clients in Boise recently. They had an in-home senior care business they bought through us. They came back after a little while and said, Jon, what's a good bolt-on business to this that utilizes our team or at least our customer base? And I introduced them to a franchise that provides wheelchair ramps and stair lifts and retrofitting mobility solutions of your bathroom and your showers and such. And they said that's a great complement to our core business and ultimately move forward with that. So you can find those adjacencies. Property services is a great example where a lot of businesses, hey, if you're already outside doing the pool cleaning and you're over there on a weekly basis, you might as well add a high margin, opportunity, whether it be mosquito spray or lawn fertilization or something along those lines.
Talk to us about the importance to know. I'm not going to mention who, but someone close to me bought a pool cleaning franchise. She was white collar, used to working with people, made a lot of money. All of a sudden she's working with pool boys. And she's like, I can't handle these people. I can't, they just don't show, or they did this. And then now they're hitting on people. She's like going, it didn't last long. She lost a lot of money. It didn't last more than 4 months before she was like going, this is nuts. How important is it when you talk to people, these are who your employees are going to be, if it's that type of a service thing, or it's going to be white collar, just the expectations of what you're actually getting into, and other than, hey, I think it'd be cool to own this type of franchise.
Yeah, I've got some clients that say, hey, we've got some background in working with blue collar and we don't want to do it again, or we are okay with it. Most people, though, oftentimes don't have a lot of experience there, and they say, hey, we need something that's more white collar, more B2B services. That's our background. Yeah. Everyone wants the highest return on investment, fewest number of employees. Yeah, welcome to business ownership, right? I mean, in most cases, you have to have some level of employees, though not every opportunity. But there are different types of employees, and a lot of times, if they are going multi-territory, what they'll do is they'll put a manager in place that, and about half of our clients will put a manager in place day one. It gets called semi-passive, semi-absentee, executive model. I like to call it semi-involved because you're still going to be involved. I think passive is a misnomer. Now, especially early on, you're rolling up your sleeves. Now, if you have a great manager, it can really run itself. I mean, oftentimes, that you've got the franchisor supporting that manager on a day-to-day basis for you. But if you don't have a great manager, you're going to find yourself leaning in. I just always want people to go in eyes wide open to that, because I think some people sugarcoat it as they go through, and then they're like, wait a minute, no, this is real work. If it was easy, everyone would be a business owner, right? It does take extra work, but there is that potential for outsized returns in addition to building an asset that you can sell one day, in addition to the tax benefits.
So when people go to everybody, Jon Ostenson, FranBridgeConsulting.com. When they go to your website, what are they going to find? And how do they get information, educational materials? How do they contact you? If I click on it right now, what am I going to see?
And come out to our website. First, you'll get a pop-up offering you a free downloadable copy of Non-Food Franchising, 90-page, easy read, packed a ton of content in there. Most people have read that by the time we get on the phone, so highly recommend that as a first step. But no, share your email address. We'll certainly add you to our newsletter list where we share a lot of information every month. On the website, you'll see some client testimonials. You'll understand the process, some thoughts on franchising. If you click on the second tab, you'll see other podcast appearances and articles, and just really trying to get you a lot of information, again, to kind of get the juices flowing and help you understand what's out there and what next steps would look like.
And what are the next steps? I'm sure they have a consult. And then what are these steps and how long do you think it takes?
Yeah, great question.
I talked to Jon. How long is it before I open up?
Yeah, so we'll jump on our first call. We'll cover a lot on that call, and I want to get to know you and make sure I understand your situation, and then I'll come back to you a few days later with the opportunities. And again, we look at a large array of different types of businesses, different industries. I want to give you a good lay of the land, and it can be an iterative process from there. I mean, we may pull in other opportunities, but what I found is this gives us a really good starting point. So the goal there would be, after we review these, let's identify 3 or 4 to then have a conversation with. That's where the magic starts happening. When you have real conversations about real opportunities, you start to crystallize in your mind, here are the characteristics I like in a business or don't like, and you give that feedback to me. So I'd say from the first call with the franchisor till you're at the point of signing the franchise agreement, it's typically around 2 months, give or take. I just had a client last week move through it in 28 days. It really depends on someone's schedule and bandwidth, but if you want to move through it fast, you can. Some take more time, but probably 2 months. And from there, there's going to be some degree of training. If it's a retail location, there will be site selection and build out. Franchisor largely handles a lot of that for you. But all throughout the discovery process, when you're getting information from the franchisor, talking to other franchisees, I'm kind of holding your hand through that process, and we're getting on touch base calls and serving as a sounding board. And like I said, we can always iterate as needed. We've got funding resources, partners that we can pull in. If you want to have a franchise attorney review the agreement, we've got those partners. So kind of a one-stop shop for your franchise discovery process.
And within that process, they'll tell you, I know my wife was looking at this high-end pet grooming spa, chandeliers, the whole, perfect for Scottsdale, right? But they required the franchisee to actually work in the business full time. What is the percentage, do you think, where the franchisor goes, you got to work in it, or at least a year?
I'd say in the food space, it's a little more common early on until you really build that credibility and have a large number of units. With those that we work with, out of the 600 different companies that are in expansion mode, I'd say probably 75% allow for that executive model and 25% require that you work in the business. Now, for those 75%, they would love for you to work in the business, right? I mean, no one's going to ramp up a business like the guy with the skin in the game, but they understand that to get the best people, oftentimes those best people can't give it their full-time focus. They can only give it part-time. They trust those people will put a good manager in place.
So we got to ask you a question. We keep hearing non-food. Why?
Hey, I've got nothing against the food guys. I've got a lot of friends on that side of the aisle, and we certainly need them and support them. But my humble belief is there are easier ways to make money, opportunities that may require fewer operating hours, less employees in some cases, less hourly employees, less trendy like we talked about, maybe higher margins because you don't have the food waste, and less CapEx on the front end too. So again, we need the food guys, but there are a lot of other paths to make money out there.
And all of us that have, it's one of the things, with my hotels that offer free breakfast. I'm like, I'm spending, $7,000-8,000 more a month on the free breakfast. And it's hard because then you get the 1-star reviews say, they only had 2 meat options. And the last hotel I stayed, I'm like going, get your free breakfast, get out of my hotel, so it is hard, just especially, different costs. It's just, the skyrocketing. The book, Non-Food Franchising. Talk to us a little bit about what they're going to find when they read it.
Yeah, we cover some client case studies. We talk about different industries. We talk about that what can be made financially. And there we give some examples. We talk about the funding options. We talk about the FDD, the franchise disclosure document, and how to interpret that. And then we talk about franchising. We have a chapter on franchising versus startups, the pros and cons, franchising versus entrepreneurship through acquisition, the idea of buying an existing business, and the pros and cons that oftentimes people overlook. So yeah, try to pack as much content into 90 pages to make it an easy read. And it's been out there 2.5 years. We've gotten great feedback.
Is it easier to buy existing franchise or start one yourself?
I'd say start one yourself. To buy an existing franchise, again, the good ones oftentimes get bought by other franchisees in the system, so they never even hit the open market. Now, the idea of buying an existing business out there, it could be a great proposition, but every day I talk to clients that have been looking for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, trying to find that business. They've been under LOI 5 times. Someone outbid them. The due diligence didn't shake out. And even if they do find one, there's risk in that they're paying a premium for the business because it's cash flow and it's got a team in place. Well, whenever you have a change in ownership, oftentimes there's some disruption and key members of the team may leave the next day, right? Or key customers. And so here you paid a premium. So to me, there's risk inherent there that oftentimes people overlook. Whereas with a franchise, you've got an established system that you can put your thumbprints on from day one and kind of make it your own team.
Yeah, and that's a great point you made. A buddy of mine bought a business, 20-year general manager. The owner sold it, wanted to start something else. Well, they didn't tell him that the GM was going to go and a couple other employees. They kind of left that out. So day one, all of a sudden they get resignations, and then he had to start basically on his own. It's just one of those risks that you take. John, how can people find you other than, FranBridgeconsulting.com? What are some other ways to get a hold of you?
Yeah, the social platform I'm most active on is LinkedIn. We put some content out there every day on a regular basis. But yeah, again, if you want to come out to FranBridgeconsulting.com, share your email address. I'll share a downloadable copy of the book. And if you like to take a next step, again, it's entirely free. Book a call with us, and we'd love to jump on a phone and help in any way I can.
Is there anything else that perhaps I didn't hit on that you'd like to tell our audience?
No, I think we cover the gamut there. I'd say, we're seeing more and more interest. I mean, I've never seen so much interest. If you look at business applications and Google searches, I mean, they're near an all-time high. I mean, during the pandemic, there was a spike, but we're seeing that same spike now, and I think for a variety of reasons. And, there's no downside to dipping a toe in the water. So I'd encourage people to get off the couch and, 90% of our clients end up getting involved in something that was in an industry never on their radar. So yeah, until you get in the game and you don't know what's out there.
All right. Absolutely. The richest people that I know are manufacturing or have something that I'm like going, really? That's in what kind of grease, fat, something or other that, they're the largest in the nation. I'm like going, unbelievable. But, so it doesn't have to be sexy people. It just has to cash flow, right? John, it's been a pleasure having you on. And everybody, Jon Ostenson, FranBridgeConsulting.com. And all of you that are thinking, especially those in tech, there's a lot of layoffs now. Don't wait until you get laid off or wait until you get fired. If you're thinking about it, there's a chance, and you maybe think, hey, what can I do next? I'm getting tired of working for the man or the woman. And perhaps franchises are the way to go. John, thank you so much for coming on to the Richer Geek Podcast. Have a wonderful day.